This is Florida. Beaches, swamps, theme parks, and the occasional alligator in a swimming pool. But long before any of that, and far more recently than you'd think, this exact land was ruled by monsters. Giants with claws like scythes, cats with fangs like daggers, a killer bird taller than you are, and a shark the length of a school bus. These are not creatures from a movie. Every single one of them really walked, swam, or hunted right here on the same ground that modern Florida is built on. Some of them so recently that the first humans in America saw them alive. So imagine you pulled into your driveway tonight, and your headlights landed on one of these standing on the concrete. This isn't a joke. These are the 12 prehistoric monsters that once ruled Florida, and we're counting down to the most terrifying of them all. Number 12. The giant beaver. You know the beaver, the harmless little dam builder. Now picture one the size of a black bear. Castaroides weighed up to 100 kilograms, stretched over 2 meters long, and swam through Florida's ancient swamps and rivers, gnawing with front teeth up to 15 centimeters long. It wasn't a predator, but a 2-meter rodent with orange chisels for teeth is not something you'd want to meet at the water's edge in the dark. It shared Florida's wetlands with the alligators for hundreds of thousands of years, cutting through the black water at night, a shadow the size of a bear gliding just beneath the surface. Then, around 10,000 years ago, as the climate shifted and humans spread across the continent, the giant beaver vanished, leaving today's small, harmless beaver as the only hint that Florida's swamps once held a rodent that could look a child in the eye. Number 11. Holmesina. If you've ever seen an armadillo scurry across a Florida road, you've met its tiny descendant. Holmesina was a pampeter, a giant armored relative of the armadillo the size of a small pony, weighing over 200 kilograms, its whole body wrapped in flexible bands of bony armor. Unlike its little cousin, it couldn't roll into a ball, and it didn't need to. Almost nothing could get through that shell. It lumbered across Florida's grasslands, grazing on tough plants, a living tank plated in bone. Picture that shuffling across your front lawn at night, a low, wide slab of muscle and bone the size of a pony, its armor scraping softly against the dark. For all its bulk, it was a peaceful grazer. But nothing on 4 legs was going to make it move. Holmesina roamed Florida until roughly 10,000 years ago, disappearing alongside the other giants as the Ice Age ended and a new kind of predator, us, arrived on the peninsula. Number 10. Glyptotherium. And speaking of armor, if Holmesina was a tank, this was a fortress. Glyptotherium was a glyptodont, a distant cousin of the armadillo blown up to the size of a small car and weighing up to a ton. Its entire back was a single solid dome of fused bone with a bony cap over its skull like a built-in helmet, and some of its relatives even swung a spiked club on the tail. It grazed the same Florida wetlands, utterly untouchable. No saber-tooth, no direwolf, no lion could bite through it. For millions of years, that armor was more than enough. But armor is no defense against a spear, and when humans reached Florida, even the fortress fell. By around 10,000 years ago, the giant armored grazer was gone from the peninsula for good. Number 9. The American mastodon. Most people mix them up with mammoths, but the mastodon was its own beast, stockier, lower to the ground, with straighter tusks and a shaggy coat, built for forests and swamps rather than open plains. And Florida was full of them. Mastodons browsed the peninsula's ancient cypress swamps and woodlands, using their tusks and trunks to strip branches, standing 3 meters at the shoulder and weighing several tons. Their fossil teeth are still dredged out of Florida's rivers today. Imagine an elephant-sized animal crashing through the tree line at the edge of your neighborhood in the dark. The mastodon ruled Florida's forests for ages, until the end of the Ice Age, when a changing climate and human hunters brought the curtain down on North America's giants around 10,000 years ago. Number 8. The Columbian mammoth. The mastodon's taller, heavier cousin, and one of the largest land animals ever to stand on Florida soil. The Columbian mammoth towered up to 4 meters at the shoulder, carried tusks that could stretch beyond 4 meters, and weighed as much as 10 tons. Unlike the woolly mammoth of the frozen north, this southern giant roamed the warm grasslands of Ice Age Florida in herds, grazing the open savannas that once covered the peninsula where suburbs stand today. A single one of these could flatten a car without breaking stride. They dominated Florida for hundreds of thousands of years, and then, in the same wave of extinction that took the mastodon, the largest beast in Florida's history simply disappeared around 10,000 years ago. Number 7. The giant ground sloth. Forget the slow, cute little sloth hanging in a tree. Erematherium was a ground sloth the size of an elephant, up to 6 meters long and weighing 4 tons, and it lived right here in Florida. Far too heavy to climb, it reared up on its massive hind legs, using its thick tail as a prop, and reached into the trees with arms tipped in enormous curved claws longer than kitchen knives. Those claws could gut almost any attacker. It wasn't a hunter, but it was utterly fearless, and it had every reason to be. Nothing in Florida could take it down. Nothing, that is, except us. When humans arrived, the giant sloth's fearlessness became a death sentence. By around 10,000 years ago, this 4-ton monster was gone from the peninsula. Number 6. The dire wolf. Now the predators begin. The dire wolf was bigger and far more powerfully built than any wolf alive today, with a massive skull and bone-crushing jaws, a pack hunter that ran down the mammoths, sloths, and wild horses of Ice Age Florida in coordinated packs. Recent DNA even revealed it wasn't a true wolf at all, but a separate, more ancient lineage that only looked the part. Imagine a pack of these, each one heavier than the largest wolf you've ever seen, moving silently between the houses on your street in the dark. And they didn't hunt alone. A full pack could surround and pull down an animal the size of a young mammoth, working together in near silence until the trap was already closed. They hunted Florida for tens of thousands of years, the undisputed pack killers of the peninsula, until their big prey vanished at the end of the Ice Age, and the dire wolf, unable to adapt to a world of smaller, faster animals, died out around 13,000 years ago. Number 5. The American lion. Yes, Florida had lions, and they were bigger than the ones in Africa today. Panthera atrox was one of the largest cats that ever lived, up to 25% larger than a modern lion, powerful enough to bring down bison and young mammoths. It stalked the grasslands and forests of Ice Age Florida as an apex ambush predator, and at over 250 kilograms, it feared absolutely nothing. Picture those eyes catching your headlights at the end of the driveway. A lion, a quarter bigger than any alive today, crouched low on the concrete, muscles coiled, watching you without a flicker of fear. This was a cat that hunted the largest animals in Florida and won. The American lion ruled the peninsula right up until the great die-off at the end of the Ice Age, when its prey collapsed and the giant cats faded with them, vanishing around 11,000 years ago. Number 4. The saber-toothed cat. The most famous predator of the Ice Age, and a Florida local. Smilodon wasn't built for speed. It was built like a wrestler, with massively muscled front legs made to pin its prey to the ground before driving a pair of 18-centimeter saber fangs into the throat. Those fangs were longer than your whole hand. It hunted the mammoths, sloths, and bison of Florida from ambush, exploding out of the brush to grapple prey many times its own weight. Now imagine one of those crouched in your yard, sabers gleaming white in the headlights. Smilodon prowled Florida for hundreds of thousands of years until the giants it hunted died out, and the ultimate ambush killer followed its prey into extinction around 10,000 years ago. Number 3. Titanus, the terror bird. And this is the one from the thumbnail, because it may be the most nightmarish animal that ever lived in Florida. Titanus was a flightless predatory bird that stood up to 2.5 meters tall, taller than a grown man, running on powerful legs and armed with a huge, hooked, axe-shaped beak built to deliver killing blows from above. It couldn't fly, and it didn't need to. It ran its prey down and struck like a raptor with a hatchet for a head. And it lived right here, hunting the plains of ancient Florida. And it hunted the way the worst predators do, patient, silent, and fast. It could stand perfectly still, then cover ground in a burst that nothing its size should be capable of. Imagine pulling into your driveway and finding that staring back at you in the dark, motionless, its cold eye fixed on you, its head lowered. Titanus was one of the last of the great terror birds, holding on in Florida until around 2 million years ago. A killer bird straight out of a nightmare that once called this state home, and stood exactly where your street stands now. Number 2, the short-faced bear. The dire wolf and the saber-tooth were terrifying, but they both lived in the shadow of this. Arctodus, the short-faced bear, was one of the largest land predators in the entire history of North America. On all fours, it was already enormous. Standing up, it towered well over 3 meters tall, high enough to look straight into a second-story window. With long legs built for covering ground and a bite that could crack bone, it may have simply muscled other predators off their kills, a bully so big that nothing else on the continent could challenge it. And it lived in Florida. Picture 3.5 meters of bear rising up in your headlights, filling the whole driveway, blotting out the garage behind it. The short-faced bear ruled Florida until the end of the Ice Age, disappearing around 11,000 years ago. And number 1, the megalodon. It never stood in your driveway, because it ruled the ocean just off Florida's coast, and it was the single most terrifying predator in the history of the entire planet. Megalodon was a shark up to 18 meters long, the length of a school bus, with a bite force strong enough to crush a small whale, and teeth the size of your open hand. And Florida is one of the best places on Earth to find those teeth. They still wash up on its beaches and litter the bottoms of its rivers by the thousands. For 20 million years, this colossus hunted the warm seas around Florida, hunting whales as easily as a modern shark takes a fish. Then, as the oceans cooled and its prey moved away, even the largest shark that ever lived slowly starved into extinction. Every black fossil tooth found on a Florida beach is a reminder that these waters once held a monster beyond imagining. 12 monsters, giants, killers, and a shark the size of a bus. And every one of them once ruled the land or the waters of Florida, standing where your home stands now. Most were wiped out in the same slow catastrophe, a warming world, and the arrival of humans. But their story doesn't have to end with a fossil in a riverbed. If you want to step inside their world, to live the final days of the last of its kind, like the very last megalodon sinking alone into a cooling sea, that story is waiting for you right here. I'll see you in it.